Hi, and welcome to the Brass Music Store podcast. My name is Bob Quick, and in every episode I'll be talking to some of the big names from the brass band movement. For this first episode, I talked to Owen Farr, virtuoso tenor horn player who was across at the Fermanagh and Tyrone Summer School. And Owen, before we start, did you know that the Irish of Tyrone, which is one of the county names that you're going to, Tyrone, actually means land of Owen in Irish?
No?
Yeah, well, that's what it means.
Well.
It's spelled a different way, of course, not spelled the Welsh way, it's spelled E-O-G-H-A-N.
Yeah.
But so you're going home, in a sense, to the land of Owen.
The land of Owen?
Yeah, that's what it means. That's the Irish translation.
Not the land of my fathers. The land of Owen. Oh, that's great.
So there you are. I bet Stevie Crooks hasn't told you that in all
No,
these
he hasn't,
years.
no.
Yeah, you can
You're the first.
reprimand him that.
Of all the times I've been coming here, no one's told me that.
You should reprimand Seamus Gallagher for that as well.
I'll speak to him about that. I'll ask him.
Okay, well, you're obviously very welcome back, Owen, to Northern Ireland. And first of all, tell us, what does a typical week in the life of Owen Farr look like at the moment?
That's different all the time. I suppose during term time, throughout the week, I do teaching. So I teach at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester. On Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I teach at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. Thursdays I teach at a comprehensive school, and Fridays I teach at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. So I'm sort of between Manchester, Birmingham and Cardiff teaching. I live in South Wales, so I sort of travel to those colleges. And then on the weekend is when I do my playing and solo work and various things. And
the brass band scene, I mean, how long are you away from Corrie now? You're away...
It must be about 5 years now.
5 years, as long as that.
Yeah, I think it's about 5 years I finished, yeah.
And at the top level, brass bands thriving? Seem to be thriving across the water?
I think so. I think brass band is becoming more global now than it has been. Certainly if we go back 20, 30 years, brass banding was predominantly powerful in the UK. Yes. And of course the UK bands are still great, but we see new bands coming up now overseas, following our model, which is nice to see, and working hard, and there's many bands doing well, and not just in Europe either. There's bands over in America that are playing very, very well, and we got many bands in Japan popping up. So it's becoming more global, which I think is very, very exciting.
Yes, that's a healthy sign, certainly.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly when you're talking about the major music colleges that you're teaching at, when I think back now, I was at Music College in London a long time ago, 45 years ago, and brass bands in those days were a dirty word.
Yeah.
Absolutely a dirty word.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to play in them, you weren't allowed to... trombone players were discouraged from thinking and reading treble clef. Yeah. And there was a real issue, and that's obviously disappeared completely.
I wouldn't say it's disappeared completely. I think...
Really?
I think that still is there from certain people's perspective, but maybe things that have helped us with that is some individuals. Maurice Murphy springs to mind straight away, the great Maurice Murphy from London Symphony Orchestra, James Watson, and even today players like Philip Cobb, Ian Bousfield. Yes. They were all brass band players. James Fountain, they were brass band players first, and they've gone on to become the world's greatest symphony players. But they're very, very proud of their brass band heritage, and have never denied that. And still today, when you see Ian Bousfield and Philip Cobb as a soloist, they will often play brass band repertoire. Philip Cobb will take his cornet, So yes. I think those guys have helped us out, which is very nice to see.
Trailblaze. And do you think brass bands in the 21st century are more symphonic than they were 100 years ago or 50 years ago?
I do, yeah. And I think that our educational institutions is what's helped there. Howard Snell was very, very involved with the Royal Northern a long time ago, and a few others, and Elgar Howarth. There were orchestral professional musicians that became involved with brass bands, and then Howard became involved with the music college. And the difference now, a long time ago, people would have worked in the coal mines, etc., and got into the band that way. These days, at the age of 18, we get people that have the luxury of going to music college and studying music. And when they study music, they study alongside the violinists and pianists, whatever, it's the same sort of curriculum. So
Yes.
even though they're involved in their playing skills within the brass band, they still have to study Beethoven, Bach, etc. So I think our educational system now is what's helping that. And so maybe we don't have as many brass bands as we used to, obviously to do with coal mines closing and what have you, but I think that the standard of brass bands is extremely high now because people just simply becoming more educated.
Yes, and certainly the cornet sound now is different from 50 years ago, whereas people like Philip Cobb can, as you say, switch between Hendon Band and the staff band and the London Symphony Orchestra, whereas 50 years ago his grandfather, Roland, of course, who was a fabulous,
wonderful player, yes, he was.
Roland had such a sound that he wouldn't have fitted into a symphony orchestra 50 years ago because he had that wide vibrato.
It's that perspective, isn't it? I think back then, a cornet player like Roland, their approach would have been, this is my sound, this is how I play. If they played Mozart, Mahler, or Philip Wilby, it was the same.
Yes.
Whereas today's players, I think, through education, will think, well, more of the composer first, and what's the best sound that suits that music, and so they become more versatile in their approach.
Yes, that's a fair point. And I mean, coming from my career, I spent 35 years working for the Music Authority in the Western Board, where you're about to head. And education, music education has changed a lot in the last 35 years in the instrumental world. In the last 15 years, not for the better, really.
Right.
And our perception is that we struggle to hold, or we did struggle when I worked, to hold the standards because of the system. I mean, the system now would have much more problems creating a Seamus Gallagher than it did 20 years ago. I mean, did you find that reflected at college level? With the standard of players coming
eventually,
through?
of course it does, yeah, because if the grassroots are coming through,
Yes.
then it will do. And traditions and things change, and times change as well. And of course, it brings up the painful topic of money and funding as well, which where I'm living in South Wales is very much happening right now, where government funding is being pulled away, and if the funding isn't there, my goodness, it's hard. But the other thing that I think of that's happened in that time is things like computer games. Whereas 30 years ago, I'm more or less the same. Seamus is only a couple of years older than me. When we were young, computer games were coming around. They were coming in. They're quite new. Whereas today, they're incredible. Absolutely. And every child will have either a PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, iPad. I don't know, all those kind of things. Yes. I've got 2 children myself now, so I'm very aware of it. And I am also I teach at a secondary school, and I know that when I tell my kids at the school there to go and practice, the biggest battle really is trying to encourage them to pick their instruments up rather than pick their PlayStation up.
Yes.
Because all they want to be doing, it really is playing. And today they have these headsets where they can play someone in America or something. So there's always someone to play their computer games with. So that's the big battle we have now, whereas in the good old days, it wasn't. So... that's where it's steering the direction we're in now, and I think that's obviously going to continue as well. So
it's not going to improve, is it? I mean, and also now the charging is a big thing. I mean, when I started teaching in the late 70s, the music service, everything was free.
Yes,
everything was free.
It was when I learned.
And now nothing's free.
Nope.
And that's not the fault of the music services. That's, as you said, that's the diminishing funding from central government.
Yeah,
that means they have to charge.
It's the only way to do it,
and that puts a lot of kids off. I mean, you talk about iPads and phones and things, and it wouldn't be an issue at the Corey level, but at a couple of section levels down, the issue now I find in band practice is people actually watching football matches on the iPad.
Because they've got
during the band practice, or as soon as there's a bar's rest, someone will check a phone.
Yeah.
And that to people of my generation is just mind-blowingly ridiculous. Yeah. But it seems
communication becomes so easy now, doesn't it? That people are always on the go all the time. Yes. I mean, for example, if I wanted to contact you, I could text you, ring you, leave you a voicemail, email you, look you up on Facebook, tweet you,
yes.
Instagram and
yes.
WhatsApp, whatever they are. It's endless.
Yes.
And so many people today have all those things.
Yes, absolutely.
And they could be contacted by the same person through all those things.
Yes.
So life just never stops. And that's why bandmasters could be so good if you just about no phones. They stay over there. They must be turned off. It can be quite therapeutic for people to actually just study music and forget about all those things. And
Yeah, that's a good point. Owen, I think it's fair to say that you have a reputation as a master technician and musician on the horn. Talk us through, or tell us a little bit about your daily practice routine.
Well, nothing's completely set in stone for me, because every day is slightly different, and certainly when I became a father, things change. But needless to say, I will play every single day, and I like to work on many things that I feel I'm pushing myself in every direction. So I'll certainly try and play some pedal tones, some high notes, some flexibilities, some articulation, some breath control studies, so to keep myself sort of in trim with everything, that enables then to play the music. What I guess what I don't like to do too much is just put music on the stand and play solos through, because just by playing solos through all the time, you can encourage bad habits in your playing without realizing it, and the more you work on a bad habit, the bigger it grows. So I will work on some scalic studies and exercises, things prior to that, to make sure I'm in good working order, and then I can focus on the music for the second half of it then. So the time varies, it's hard to say from day to day. Yeah. I used to have a 5-hour practice routine before I had children, which was quite intense throughout the day. Now it's a little bit less, but if I have free time, then I will go up to 5 hours. It's different all the time, but I still focus on the same things, and I still keep trying to play a little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit longer, richer sound and things like that every single day, to sort of keep on going, try and lift up barriers, and trying to tell myself what can't be done, but rather have the view that, I wonder what can be done. Practice an optimistic mind and see what develops that way then.
Yes, and would you use different method books, the Arbon or the Clark or something? You'd be.
Yeah, funny you mentioned the Clark. I've just been teaching from Herbert Clark Technical Studies with someone here now. I have all the books.
Yes,
I have pretty much all the ones that are written. I suppose the main ones would be Arbon, Sancho Combe, Herbert Clark, some flexibilities like Charles Collins or Walter Smith. They're the sort of the big books, yeah.
Yes, and you also have a reputation for, and you touched on it earlier, for extending and pushing horn technique and horn repertoire. What are your future plans for horn solo repertoire then? Where would you see it going in the next few years for you?
That's a good question. I'm always experimenting. Well, not always. The second CD I did was really commissioning composers to write new works for the instrument, which I did. I was very, very pleased with. The third project I came to then was, I'm not quite entirely sure how I got onto it, but was the music of Niccolo Paganini, the violinist. Yes. When I started getting Paganini's music together, keying into the computer, transcribing things and working with things and different keys and seeing things could work out, and completely fell in love with the music, and it became a great project, and that brought my third CD. What I liked about that was, because the music wasn't the brass band repertoire, it was completely different, it encouraged me to delve into different sort of musical avenues, and technically I had to train myself very, very rigorously to be able to play the music as well. So that's the most recent project. I am working on something else at the moment that'll keep quiet, but it's by another Italian composer, bizarrely, where I'm experimenting with different orchestrations and different violin music again, to see if there's something that I can get from it. The more I keep myself active like that, the more it improves my playing as well, and keeps my mind alive. It's nice when you commission works, but very often these days the works that come back are quite similar in some ways. It's a good topic when you talk with many people. I'm sure violinists would turn their nose up at what I talk about, but Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, Vivaldi, they didn't write for the tenor horn. Therefore, that doesn't mean I think we should ignore their music.
Yes.
I think that if Beethoven heard that we were experimenting with his music, he'd be happy with that. Yes. He wouldn't mind at all. So I think for some people to say, "Oh, you shouldn't play their music; it was written for different instruments," I'm different to that. I look the other way. I think we should open our minds up and study. Here with Les Niche last December, myself, Les, and 3 others in America got together to do a quintet brass recording of Goldberg's Variations. I mean, on paper you think that was crazy and absolutely impossible, but what a project it was. And the CD's not come out yet, we're waiting for it.
Yes.
It was great. And to delve into the music of Bach, you know, and get into that, and all this work together for different ideas, and it was so fascinating. And that's where I am at the moment, is seeing what else is possible, rather than commission new works, taking other pieces that I like and transcribing them and seeing if they would work, and if they don't, they don't. But at least I think we shouldn't just be playing music from composers today. We need to learn all music. I mean, jazz could even come into that. It's being open to everything.
Yes. Well, certainly the Goldberg Variations would be a masterclass for arrangers, because the development of those ideas through the canons and the fugues is just something else, isn't it?
It's a mammoth project as well.
It is, absolutely, yes. Yes, it is absolutely, yeah. I suppose in closing, Owen, I suppose we're trying to develop here, through one of the music publishing companies, a series of solos for virtuosos like yourself, and this is driven by the fact that lower down section bands usually don't get the chance to work with guys of your quality, because the band parts for the solos are so difficult.
Yeah.
They just can't.
Yeah.
So we're working on a project with the Art Scouts to try and get some funding to develop a series of solos, virtuosic solo parts with straightforward band parts, so we can then get people like yourself across and give these guys in lower down bands that fantastic experience. So maybe we'll be in contact and see if we can get you across and get some ideas as to the type of stuff
absolutely
that we could do with that.
That's a great topic. That's something we could talk about offline another time for a long time.
Yes,
because you're absolutely right. And some of the greatest pieces we have, like concertos and stuff, well, the accompaniment is so difficult.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's a great idea.
Thanks for listening to the first episode of Brass Music Store podcasts. For the next episode, I'll be talking to cornet legend Brian Taylor, who's played for over 45 years for the Fairies Band. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please let your friends know and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, or you can check out our website for all the latest arrangements at brassmusicstore.com.